Good afternoon and welcome to Thursday's Super Bowl 58 Radio Row. I'm doing this because I'm really excited for this interview. Milwaukee to Milwaukee.
Yes.
Packers, we see you. Milwaukee, we see you. Urban America across the United States, we see you. Johnny, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank You are so welcome. You are creating hope and possibility through sports for athletes across the country, not just football,
Yeah.
across the leagues, multi age groups, regardless of faith, ethnicity, socioeconomic status. You're creating results for the people who need it most.
Yes.
Tell us what you're doing.
So growing up was kind of tough for me. So I know I'm just gonna dive into a prequel real quick. I had teenage parents, so I tell people all the time that I try to be everything I wish I had. So I saw struggles. My family got locked up for a long time. My mom was hooked on drugs, and I'm gonna get emotional because it's who I am. But God just showed me a way. Like there's had to be something better. So I'm just like I'm gonna be Uncle Johnny to all these kids, and it's just like I've had kids stay at my house, help Braylon Allen from the Badgers live with us. We used to help J.C. Latham a little bit. Played football with my son when he's little. It's crazy now they're going to the NFL, but I just try to do what I can to give these kids a chance and show them that there's hope and show them that there's another side to this because it's bigger than sports. Because once it's done, what do we have? So just teaching kids too how to be a good person, and it's just amazing, and I have so much fun doing it because like literally these kids they put me in group chats and I'm like, guys, I love you. Take me out of that group chat just because it's fun, and they respect me as Coach Bridgewater too. So it's like they invite me to their birthday parties and their graduation ceremonies, and just got off the phone with Braylon. He FaceTime. He's like, if you're not at my draft party, so it's on. And trust me, that's not. I don't want to get hit by that kid. You know what I mean? He's a big kid. So I'm just very blessed. In a nutshell, it's kind of how I make it happen.
So tell us a little bit. So you say Braylon Allen, I know you're working with all these kids, you're getting them ready for the draft, in particular for the combine. What is it that you're doing? Personal training, mental health, the whole thing?
It's the whole thing. So a lot of these questions they ask these kids are kind of crazy. So I just prepare these kids that really look at it as life lessons, right? They want to see how you can handle adversity. And a lot of these kids, they don't get adversity at home. Their first things of adversity are on the streets, but their peers or at school or something other than the home. Because unfortunately, parents, we try our best to love our kids, but then it also comes as a friendship. So it's hard to discipline our kids and try to do stuff like that. So I try to teach these kids how to overcome everything. So I'm also in school for neurobiology right now because I do think the mental health aspect of the game, it's bigger than sports and how they handle it. And a lot of these guys, they smile in the limelight and then they go home and they cry themselves to sleep, and they won't come out and admit that. But it's just becoming full circle with these kids, and I want to be something that they can fall back on. Like I'm not kidding. A lot of these kids call me Uncle Johnny, or like I'm their brother. I'm their big brother. Whether you're female, male, it doesn't matter. I train all over. But like you said, it's kind of fun once you see them get there, and then they don't forget about you. Because it can happen. And I'm not saying like they have to call me back, but if I shoot them a text, they'll answer within reasonable time and stuff. So it's just a blessing being able to do all that for them.
Johnny, I want to start with two words and then I want to turn it over to Roy, but I'd like you to walk us through adversity to resiliency.
Yeah, so a lot of these kids look at adversity and it almost makes them become the victim, and they like to victimize themselves. And like, growing up myself too, like I had to realize like God put me all through that stuff to make me who I am today. So I even made a post the other day on social media, and it was like I used to cower from things and hide them because I was embarrassed. And now I shout them out loud because the people who respect me, they don't know. A lot of them don't know that, but they get to see what it turned me into. And I'm probably overly confident about myself, but at the end of the day, like I'm just very blessed, and I thank God every day because I couldn't do it without him. And people don't believe in God. Like I'm not here to like push my faith or anything. I'm just here to let kids understand that because I believe in Jesus Christ, that he died on the cross for my sins, and like I wouldn't be here. Sorry, I wouldn't be who I am today without like him pushing me and him believing in me, because not having parents my entire life, because like I said, my mom was a drug addict and my dad was gone. It kind of was like I turned to my grandparents, and I had great grandparents. So actually, if it wasn't for them and God, who knows? But a lot of these kids too, they see me in the suburbs and where my business is and where I live, and they're like, oh, he came from that, and no, I didn't. So it's like I also give them hope. Like no matter where you come from, you have a purpose, and as long as you serve your purpose and don't chase your tail, you know what I mean? You can be resilient. I hope that answered your question. Sorry, it's like a roundabout way, but
I
I
think it
just,
was a
yeah, I
beautiful way
appreciate
to
that.
answer my question,
Thank you.
and also just shout out to your grandparents because I'm sure that wasn't easy for
Yeah,
them.
it wasn't, and I was a handful. I'm not gonna lie. When I was younger, I wasn't always like this. You know what I mean? I'm probably still a handful. Ask my wife; she'll tell you. My kids, they'll tell you. But at the end of the day, though, I know I can count on them to have my back, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Johnny, it's amazing, and you talk about working with athletes, right? And you've seen the diversity of backgrounds that they come from.
Yep.
And I think as you told your story, it really hit me that you've got the ability to empathize with what they're doing. And as you said, you were a handful. So you understand how to work with somebody
Right.
that may classify as a handful. But you've gone on to be really successful. Talk a little bit about what you're doing now with the genetic code.
Sure. So we created the genetic code about 3, 4 years ago when I decided that I really discovered how to train an athlete because it's deeper than the muscle. Everybody wants to train their muscle. So I look at it, I can kind of compare it to electricity. So watts is the speed and strength of electricity. So I tell these kids, everybody wants voltage, which is strength, but no one cares about the amps. But if you don't have the power, the volts don't matter. So I feel like as an adolescent, you're taught to stand up, you're taught to walk. No one ever teaches you how to sit down and go backwards. So I kind of train backwards. So I teach people how to feel the ground, become one with the ground. Because if you can't land, you can't jump. If you can't start, if you can't stop, you can't start. And then it goes to the nervous system. So if we don't train our nerves, it's with everything in life too. So like we have nervous breakdowns and we have panic attacks, and that's all because our nerves misfire. So if we have stronger nerves, the muscles are going to be stronger. So even goes into the mental health aspect that a lot of these football players are dealing with the CTE and stuff like that. I feel like if we start attacking the nerve system in a more positive way, we can really eliminate a lot of the health issues that we have, or even the non-contact injuries that we have, just because we have a support system of our nerves, if that makes sense.
Well, it definitely makes sense. And I think one of the things that you talk about, right, sports is, you talked about the amps and the watts and
Yep.
the power, right? And one of the biggest issues in sports that we see is sort of that mental side of sports, and that, not only the mental health, which is one of the challenges a lot of athletes express, but really that mental toughness, right? Because you're going to fail. Anybody that competes in the sport, you're not going to win all the time.
Right.
You're not going to
Scoreboard
perform
for a reason.
perfectly every time. So talk a bit about how you embed that resiliency in the work that you're doing.
So as cliche as it sounds, but if you're not learning from your losses, that's the only way that there's a failure, right? So you really can't fail at anything you give 100%. I tell these kids all the time, like if you can look in the mirror and say, "Oh, there's this one play I took off," and that's a little bit of a problem. But if you really give 100%, you really can't fail. It's an outcome, right? Life has outcomes, and unfortunately, it's not always the outcome that we want. So as long as we're learning from the outcomes from our 100% that we're giving to our teammates, or if it's tennis, an individual sport, golf, things like that, like, don't beat yourself up. Just look at where you could have gotten better in the 100% effort and attack that problem. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's great, Johnny, and I think what you're really doing there is you're building this cohesive network of resilient team members playing together. So you're talking about getting kids ready for the combine.
Yes.
Really at a very core level, fundamentally, you're teaching them to become their piece of the puzzle,
Yep.
their unit in the family. I know family is important to you, not just your family, but building families, building organizations, building players to really unite and rally around each other. Best practices that you're seeing for building teams.
Um, culture. I'm huge on culture, and it stems with it's kind of like one heartbeat, right? So you guys, like all different backgrounds. One of my coaches told me, "See this leather ball? It brings all races, all religions, and everything together as one. As soon as you cross that line, you become a family. You guys can hate each other in the locker room, right? But as long as the team culture, the team goal is one heartbeat, and you guys have one goal, I think that's what I try to teach these kids. So like even rival schools, when they come and train with me, they actually become friends. They become buddies. They things like that. So they all work together. So I think it's cool teaching people how to work together, because a lot of these kids become selfish But what I tell them is selfishness has to happen to become selfless, right? So if you don't work on yourself, you can't be selfish, right? To be selfless for others, self-development, self-improvement, self-worth. Self-worth is one of my biggest things. Like I look at the mirror every day, I could be having the worst day. And I tell myself how great I am, right? Because I have the gift of God. Nothing can stop me because even if it's bad, it's just a life lesson that I'm learning. So it's really not a loss. You know what I mean? I just have to understand that when I ask for a sign from God and it's not that sign that I want, that it's still okay. And it might just not happen for me. You know what I mean? I've just come to conclusions that, you know, life's great. Like I just try to teach these kids and show them like, look what I've been through and I've made it and I'm still making it. But you have to have strong support. And if it's only me, at least you have somebody.
So I want to talk real quickly, Johnny, about fundamental. Yeah, I want to talk about your business, but I also want to talk. Excuse me one second. We're gonna have to edit that out. I'm not seeing Johnny.
Yeah, it says something.
That's why I keep trying to tap you.
Well,
So Johnny, I want to talk about your business and the movement and the growth. But before I do that, I just want to ask you three fundamental things that will help people who want to play sports succeed. If you said one, two, three, these are the things you got to know. What would you tell players?
One of my main things is a lot of kids is they have the try not to mentality. Like they try not to miss the shot. They try not to drop the ball. They try not to miss the putt, things like that. And I just have to have them the mindset of execution, right? So if you execute, and that's going to be the greatest way. And I really don't have three things. I honestly just, because you can spider web off of that, to be honest. So just to like put it all in a nutshell, like don't try not to, if that makes sense.
I love it. That's great parenting advice too,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I think so, right?
That was great. That was like the golden. I'm just gonna be
I
honest.
could put that on a shirt, right? Great. No, don't take it. I'm just
That
kidding.
was the best thing I heard today on Radio Row.
Yeah.
For for every professional athlete I've spoken with, don't try not to, just do.
Yeah, because you make a shot the same way you miss a shot, right? So then when you do the try not to, every shot is different. Steph Curry can go 0 for 10, and then he just had 60 points the other day on 58% shooting. You think he tried not to miss the shot? No, he doesn't care. Watch his mouth guard hanging out of his mouth, and he shoots that thing the same way. You know what I mean? So, and then, I'll use the example of Reynolds, right? Unfortunately for the Lions, I looked it up. He had 4 drops his entire career, and he had 2 drops. I really hope that doesn't haunt him. I really hope he hears this one day, because guess what? Don't do the try not to syndrome, because it happens to everybody. And if you keep your mental health right and just own look at your career you've made. Don't rely your career on 2 drops, right? And I hate to bring that up because it's a sensitive subject right now, but dang it, I hope he hears this because I want him to understand that he's one of the better receivers in the league. So.
Yeah, and it's one of the things you see in all of sports, right? The mentality when you go through that mental training,
Yep.
right? Your brain doesn't hear the set of instructions, right?
Yeah.
Golf is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
That people use. Basketball shooting's a perfect analogy, right?
Yeah.
If your mind hears "don't miss," right? What your brain hears is
Yeah.
hit. If you're hitting a golf shot and you say "don't hit it in the water," all your brain hears is water.
Water.
To go there.
It's what I learned in school. It's literally called paralysis analysis, right? So your oblongata is processing your fear and your prefrontal cortex. It processes your emotions, and it's the devil and angel effect, right? So you're having this issue. So you're really not even shooting the way you've ever been taught, or you're really not trying to catch the way you've been taught, throwing the ball the way you've been taught. It literally becomes your own way. It's kind of like faith, right? It's funny, but my way sucks compared to God's way. Not every time I listen, but you can use this analogy in anything in life.
I love it. I love it. Tell us about your business, and are you incorporating this? Do not try, like just
Yeah, I
do?
mean, I tell these kids that all the time. I tell them too, like, I'm not here to motivate you, because if I had to motivate all thousands of kids in life, I wouldn't have any motivation for myself. But I'll tell you what, I will encourage you to not or to, right? So knock it off or to continue to get better, because sometimes kids have to hear about themselves, and sometimes it takes a village. Well, I try to be the voice of reason as well, and try to be the best example I can. I'm not always perfect, right? But I try to do that. And I partnered with people in Wisconsin at Rock Ventures, and I brought my genetic code programming to them, and it's more holistic, and it's cool because my trainers are adapting to it. I have an amazing staff. I wouldn't be able to be who I am, and I tell them that all the time. Like, they're my why, and I'm not any better than them and anything like that. So I think because I incorporate them. Or, for example, if I have to yell at them for something, I will start with the same thing that I've done that they've done to let them know that, hey, I'm not above you, but it's just up to me to tell you about that because that's my job. So we have this amazing business. It's called Watson Diesel. We have 80,000 square foot gym, and I brought my genetic code programming to it. But now I will say I'm happy. I wanted to bring that up because it's officially trademarked. So I'm working on getting certain patents and things like that because my brain is proprietary. Training an athlete isn't. So the way I see it, I don't want anybody to think that it's theirs.
So, Johnny, I've been following for you like, I don't know, 12 years. I've just been watching your trajectory, your growth, where you were, where you are now. Love what you're doing. I have
Thank you.
always loved and respected your hustle, your work ethic, your compassion. You've always demonstrated leading by example, owning your mistakes, and inspiring others. What's next? What are the next 3, 6, 12 years going to look like for Johnny Bridgewater?
I would love to just educate at the pro level so they can see, because my whole thing is the only ability that matters when you get to this level is availability, because everybody's good, right? So at the end of the day, the second strings probably can start on another team that just happens to be someone a little bit better. So if you're available, that's your best asset. So to teach them how to keep them available is huge. And I feel like it's a lost art because everybody wants to do cool stuff instead of the right stuff. And my whole thing is like just embrace the suck, right? Sometimes life sucks and just embrace it and keep it moving, because at the end of the day, God gave you air, God gave you vision, God gave you a motive. No matter what that means, no matter if you're in a wheelchair, you can make it wheel. Do you know what I'm saying? If you can't see, you can hear. There's a lot of things in life that it's unfortunate, right? I can't sing if I wanted to try. Don't get me wrong, I wish I could, right? But I embrace the suck that I can't sing. But I have so many gifts. So my one message I could give is like, don't worry about what you're not good at and hone in on what you are good at and just flourish.
That I can't think of a better way to end this interview.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys for having me. It's pretty cool.
Really well,
I,
Johnny. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
sharing.
thank you.
I echo that. I hear that all the time. People trying to minimize their weakness
Yep.
when they should be trying to amplify their strengths, because
Yep.
your strengths are what make you unique and what differentiate you from everybody else
Yeah.
in the world.
And
So,
I tell people too, like exposure isn't always looking for, or exposure is not always finding your weaknesses, but it's exposing your strengths. So it's pretty cool. I appreciate you guys.
guys, I'm Kayla Bradham here with Roy, Johnny Bridgewater, reminding you to live generously and create hope and possibility wherever you go. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.